guest, a special guest to me, because I'm a Cumberland University class of 1999 graduate, Coach Woody Hunt. And Coach Hunt, thank you for coming out. I'm gonna grill you for the next 35 minutes. It's gonna be brutal.
Glad to be here. Got some good free coffee, so that's good.
Yeah. Well, I looked up online. You've got over 1,000 wins as a baseball coach at Cumberland University. You in 4 different Hall of Fames: the Bull County Hall of Fame, NAI Hall of Fame. There's Hall of Fames I never even heard of.
Yeah.
You're there, so you've had a long, successful career as a baseball coach. And most people that I talk to that have had successful careers, whether it's baseball or whatever, that came as a byproduct of a belief system and a process. And we're going to get into that, but I'm curious about what's your earliest memory of baseball. Obviously, it's something you love. So,
my earliest memory of baseball was probably Little League. You know, I guess my brother back in those days was a long time ago. It's a little different setup than it is now. Mm-hmm. And I remember going to my brother's practice with him one day and participating with his team, and then that led me on wanting to play.
Yeah.
So that's probably my earliest memory of that. Honestly.
Was it something? So you grew up in Danville, Kentucky?
Yeah.
Now, was that something that the moment you started playing that you?
Yeah. After that, somewhat. I don't know exactly the timeline, but we were able to sign up for Little League or minor league, whatever they called it then. My brother was playing organized ball, and shortly thereafter, I'm not sure if that year or next year, you know. So that was maybe my earliest memory, but I guess my earliest memory is watching on the old black and white TV, the Cincinnati Reds would come on TV about once a week, and we would get that. And I think that probably spurred me on as much as anything.
So who were those favorite players back in that?
Back in the Cincinnati Red days, I was Leda Pinson, Frank Robinson, those guys. Then later on, Johnny Bench. I was a little older then. Pete Rose, of course. Yeah. I remember Pete Rose's first game at Crosley Field in '63, I believe. And so the old teams at the Crosley Field were my special favorite teams.
There's a lot of Cincinnati Reds fans out there, and I think it's because of all that. A lot of granddads and dads were fans way back in the day. Their kids grew up. Frank Robinson, it's hard to believe that Frank Robinson, not a long time after integration of baseball.
I know it. Yeah, it sure. He came along in '56, I believe, with the Reds. Yeah.
And so Jackie Robinson had only been just maybe 10 years before that, 15 years before that.
Yeah, probably about 10.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
And so it's we've come a long way in this country. Who's some of your earlier heroes, baseball heroes there?
Well, Leda Pinson and, like I say, some of the Reds. For some reason, most people wouldn't know who Leda Pinson was.
Yeah.
He's a great player. Probably at one time he had the most hits for a non-Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. So I just liked him the way he played the game. But Mickey Mantle was probably my all-time favorite player, just because of his overall potential. You know, he could run and hit with power, play defense. You know, he was a total package. And Mickey Mantle had a charisma about him that like no other player ever has had, and he still has that. He's probably the biggest name there is in collectible memorabilia in baseball. His stuff, autographed baseballs, pictures, and those kind of things have really kept their value.
Yeah, so, I had a 60. I used to collect baseball cards, and I had a '66 Mantle that I had for a long time, and I wound up just several years ago. Guy showed interest in it. I sold it to him because it just sat in a box, and he really showed interest in it. And he was collecting with his son. I'm like, you know what? I'll sell that to you.
Yeah.
And so, and Mickey Mantle was there in New York, which is a huge market. You wonder if he'd have been in a different market. You'd like to think that he still would have been recognized, but in that New York press market, there was...
Yeah, New York helped it for sure. Like, you got Henry Aaron, who I think is the most underrated superstar ever. And Willie Mays is a big name. He played in New York for a while.
Yeah.
Then San Francisco, so they're not quite as big of a name as Mickey.
Yeah. Willie Mays made the famous catch over his, what they call it, the basket catch over his shoulder where he's running. Willie Mays, originally an Alabama guy like me.
Yeah.
So when's the first thing, what was the decision like where you said, hey, I can make a living coaching baseball or play? I'm sure you probably had a dream to play professional baseball like every kid does. But at what point do you say, hey, I can make a life, I can make a career out of being around the sport?
Yeah, I was. I had a team in Kentucky. I was playing, coaching with two. It was the old Bluegrass League and semi-pro league, or whatever you call it, back in those days. Really good league. We had some college players on that team, and like I say, I was playing some and managing. Then I ran into Mickey England from down here, and we had breakfast one day in Louisville, Kentucky, at the tournaments, and I expressed to Mickey that I would like to somehow get into college coaching, and never thought that I'd be able to. And I never left it at that. Where the next week he called me up and said, "Look, I got a spot here at Cumberland. Would you like to come down and talk?" And so we came down. We drove down and made hardly anything. Had me a place to stay. And I basically knew that I was going to take it before I got here, but never dreamed I'd be.
What were you doing at that point to make a living?
I was I worked for at that time I worked for a linen service delivery, and I was making pretty good money at that time. Not now, but my living I was making and doing the baseball thing also, and so I wasn't really concerned about making a living there. I just wanted to follow my dream.
Yeah. Well, so a lot of coaches start off will become teachers to be so, but you didn't have that teaching background.
No, I didn't. I actually got my education after I came here.
Yeah.
And I had some, but I finished it up when I got here. And but I could have gone into the classroom. I did teach at Cumberland. For several years, and but they actually took all the coaches out of the classroom. I'm not sure. Several years ago, but it's very difficult to teach and coach too.
That's one of the benefits of going of working at Cumberland is that you can get your other degrees if you want to while you're there.
Yeah.
Now, did you say you lived on campus?
Yeah, I lived on campus for several years, and I moved like 7 times and never left campus. So I went from Justin Potter to Edward Potter.
That's where I live.
To Mary White Hall, back over to Justin Potter, and we moved around a lot.
They'd always come to you and say, "Hey, we really need you. Do you mind if you move? We need you to move."
Yeah. Well, the rent was pretty cheap, so I had no choice. But that's when Cumberland had coaches living in every dorm as the dorm parents.
Yeah.
So we on campus there we had basically. When I first got there, every dorm was a coach lived in every dorm.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah. And over the years, the cafeteria has gotten so much better. You live on campus, have that cafeteria, you wind up looking like me.
I did a lot of meals there.
So, what? For people, I think most people watching this probably know about you, but I can tell you as a former football player at Cumberland, and you'd meet a new guy on campus and you found out he was a baseball player, and you'd say, "Whew, you're going to get worked to death."
Yeah.
And because you always had those boys out there were always working on a project, always doing something. And I'm sure there was stuff that needed to be done, but I'm sure that's part of your process is just teaching people how to work and be committed to what they're doing. Talk about that for a minute.
Well, I call it buying stock in the program. And before they pick up a bat or a ball, we have work days, and they do different things. And one reason it needs to be done, I can't do it all, and as a coach, we can't get everything done. So we'll have 2 or 3 work days that we'll do different projects. And sometimes we'll pick out a big project to do. We raise money and build it ourselves, that type of thing. So we make them work, and they have responsibilities. around the program and around our facilities that they have to do. And like for example, we have a vacuum day or the day that they got to clean up the locker room, and so we have a calendar pointed out, and there's 2 players per day that has the responsibility of cleaning the locker room. And all that stuff adds up to taking pride in the program. But yeah, we make them work, not only in baseball but other things too.
Yeah. So going in, part of your philosophy. I know you're a godly man, and so talk about incorporating those personal beliefs into a baseball program.
Well, we first of all, you got to let the team and let people know what you stand for, and you can't just push it on them. You got to do it by example. And a good friend of mine, Dick Gillespie, told me one time that called it evangelism by example, basically. So I try to do that and then let players know that what we stand for, and we do share Bible scriptures, and we take maybe a motivational saying and to try to make them better. We bring in speakers to speak to them a lot, and so we do a lot of that behind closed doors, and where it's just me and the program, the players, of a speaker or a concept or a Bible verse we talk about. And every Sunday that we're not playing, we have what we call baseball chapter, and we have that every Sunday. So you got to let the players know where you stand, but you can't just force it on them.
And that's right, because
I'll turn you off.
Well, and the Holy Spirit calls people. You can't force them by the Holy Spirit. I'm not afraid to talk about Jesus and the Lord on here. Hey, if you're out there, say hello, give us a like, share, comment, say hello to Coach Hunt. Hit that like button. It would mean the world to me if you'd do that. I'm here with award-winning Coach Woody Hunt. Won the World Series twice. Have you won it twice, the NAIA World Series?
3 times.
3 times.
Yeah.
3 times. So was the last one in 2010?
14.
14.
Yeah.
All right. And several years ago, during that run there, I remember listening. By the way, I remember listening. I remember being, I guess it was in 2004 when you won it the first time.
Yeah.
And they played for it a bunch of times, right? I mean, was there every time. And in 2004, I was already out of college, but I remember being over at somebody's house, and we were listening to that game on the radio.
Yeah.
I don't remember who was calling it. I don't know if it would have been Tommy Bryan or
Lynn Bogle, probably.
Was it Lynn Bogle? Probably was Lynn Bogle. But best I remember, it was a night game when y'all won, and it was against Meriwether Lewis. Was that who y'all beat?
We beat Lewis and Clark in 14.
Yeah. Okay.
In 04, we beat Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And then in 2010, we beat Lee University.
Okay. It was 2004. But I remember, best I remember, that was a Saturday night game. Do you remember if it was a Saturday night game?
Maybe on Friday night.
Maybe on Friday night.
But it was late.
But I remember thinking, we were sitting there and we were listening, and people don't listen to the radio much anymore for that kind of stuff with all the media. That's been a few years ago, but I remember we were standing around the radio and we were listening to it, and we're like, we got it. That was a long time coming because they'd played for it so many times.
Yeah.
But there's now, is there? What's that feeling after you finally you've reached that point and you've gotten so close so many times? How many times did you play for it before?
We played it for it in '95 and got beat in the championship game. We've been there 12 times, but we've reached the final game 6 times.
Yeah.
5 times, and we came in 3rd place a couple of times.
Yeah.
So we've been real close, but to finally win it, after failing to win it, and believe me, it's hard to get there, and it's hard to win it, but to finally win it, it was just a feeling that you really can't describe. I've heard that saying before, but I know how it feels. And I remember my son, who's my assistant coach at that time, Ryan, grabbed me and said, "Dad, we finally did it. We finally did it." Because he grew up in the program, and he knew what we had tried, all the work we put into it, but to finally win one, and it was a unbelievable sense of accomplishment that we've reached our goal. But shortly thereafter, we set goals to win it again.
Yeah.
In 2006, we came in second, runner-up.
Yeah.
Got beat in extra innings. One of the best games I've ever been part of. But losing that championship game, the hurt of that game equals the thrill of winning it. It's hard to describe that. Because it was taken away from us in the last inning, and we felt like we should have won that game.
Yeah. But when you win that, is there a now what? What do we do now?
There's something like that. After that feeling's over, you got to get back to work.
Right, you go back to work.
And then you say, is this all there is to it? But then you have to. I told somebody that I believe that in order to put the validity on our program, we got to win it. We got to have multiple championships. We got to win it again to make the first one
mean more.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you look through statistics or whatever, and you see one here or there, it may not be that big deal, but if you use the NFL, for example, 20, 30 years from now, kids look through there and they say New England Patriots, New England Patriots, New England Patriots, New England Patriots. You're just like, what was going on? And or the Cowboys or the Steelers. It's the same way, in baseball, certainly with the Yankees at times.
You have to win in order to know how to win.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of an unusual statement, but in order to you got to learn how to win. You got to win first. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're always losing and coming up short, and that's part of the system progress too, but the process. But the winning just adds more determination,
habit, and you learn to do it more,
exactly
and
right,
do it more and more and more. I'm sorry, I wrote down a few questions. Oh, I got a question. Is it true that Spencer Chitwood may be the best baseball player that you've ever coached?
Well,
he told me not to ask that. I'm messing.
Well, he spent 4 years there, and he got me coach for a couple of years. Spence was a very smart player, and he had a good year for us. He came in as a freshman, he bit his time, and then he kept improving, and he was a sidearm pitcher, and he was very effective for us late in his career. But yeah, he was a good player for us.
He's going to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
He's not watching right now. He's going to watch the replay. He is setting up for the Highway 127 yard sale. Him and the Chitwoods are over there selling this weekend.
He's got a job that I've talked to him a lot about. That may be something I'll do when I retire.
Yeah. Spencer is for those of y'all who don't know, Spencer is a friend of mine. Also played baseball for Coach Hunt, and he's a picker, like an American picker. Him and his family, they buy and sell antiques, junk, stuff like that. How is the book on Louis Payton coming together?
It's coming together slowly, but I'm hoping that I'll have it out in August or to the printer in August or September.
So, Louis Payton was a dear friend of y'all. Gosh, who didn't love? If you knew Louis, you loved Louis.
Yeah.
And and as a matter of fact, he was always there at the ball games on Saturday, and I would have family that would come up to watch the ball games on Saturday, and they didn't know who Louis was, but they would always ask afterwards, "Who's that guy?"
Yeah.
Because Louis walked around real slow with his hands behind his back, and everybody talked to him. And they were something, everybody could tell there was something different about Louis. Now, when did you become friends with Louis Payton? When you first came to Cumberland?
It was I would see him occasionally, when he came to campus. But as I stayed around, and he would just, he'd always be over there. And so we developed a friendship, and because I'd always see him. And then after he got comfortable with me, he'd come over there every day. And you saw him on campus every day. And so me and him, we developed a special bond, even my whole family with him. He was just a unique character and a unique person. And in my book, I say this: why am I writing a book about a special needs person.
Mm-hmm.
But really, Louis was more than that. He was a special person.
Yeah, right.
And the reason I wanted to write this book, and it'll be a book of a lot of pictures of Louis and some stories about Louis.
Mm-hmm.
And because one reason I wanted to do it is he brought joy to everybody.
Right. Exactly.
And so I hope that people will be able to look at those pictures, read those stories, and reflect back on an individual that was very, very important to our community.
He was, and he made, and you know, as the years I was there at Cumberland, and it was great to see that every new crop of freshmen that came in, they fell in love with Louis.
Oh,
you know, and you guys would be in the locker room getting ready for football practice those first few days, and they'd be like, "Who's this guy up at the cafeteria?"
Yeah.
And Louis he didn't know any strangers. I hope Johnny Payton and
Well, Louis was a guy that would talk to anybody, and the story about meeting Bo Jackson and all that stuff is true, but he didn't care who you were.
Yeah.
If Donald Trump was here, he would talk to him the same way he talked to me and you.
It's funny that you mentioned Bo Jackson, because I want to hear it I wrote this down. I want to hear it from, let me tell you how it was told to me, and then you correct it. So Jody Atwood told me this story. He related to me. So you can tell me, I'm going to tell it, and you tell me, you go back and tell it the way it was. So in the 80s, Cumberland wound up playing Auburn in a game, and Bo Jackson, who was the Heisman Trophy winning football player, was probably one of the greatest athletes of all time. Cumberland beat Auburn in this baseball game, and Bo Jackson was on that team, and Louis went up to him afterward and said, "Hey man, you just got beat," or something like that. Now, how much of that is true? Tell the real story.
I don't know about that. That could be true. Bo was not very happy with us after the game because he went hitless. We beat him 42, and Bo Jackson went hitless with the walk.
Huh.
And that's quite a feat to hold batting hits. But before the game, we got there, and they were taking batting practice, and we saw Bo hit and do all the things before the game. Unbelievable athlete.
Yeah.
An unbelievable person. Well, when we got there, Bo was coming off the field or in front of the dugout, so this is before they started, or maybe before we started. We walk over, and I walk over to their dugout, and I remember Billy Potter, and here comes Louis behind me. Because Louis, he thought he didn't know who Bo Jackson was. And so we got to talking, and Bo said, "Hey, how you doing? What's your name?" He said, "I'm Louis Payton." He said, "Oh yeah, you're the kid that Walter Payton." And Louis said, "Yeah, he's my cousin." And he signed an autograph for Louis. I got that will be in the book, the autograph.
Oh.
And there's a picture made, but I can't find a picture of him. And I got a picture of Bo Jackson, but I don't have it with Louis. I misplaced it or what. But that story will be in the book.
Well, I heard that, of course, things get told over time. I heard that Louis said, "Hey, man, you just got beat," or something like that.
He probably did say that too.
We just beat you.
Yeah.
Now, where was that game at? Here or
in Auburn?
On Auburn.
Yeah.
Okay. And how did that game come about? Because we got a little bitty kind of program like CU.
I don't know how for sure. They either called us, we called them. Because back in those days, you could play anybody. We played Mississippi State, University of Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Kentucky. And that year we went to Auburn to play. And the next day we played at Faulkner. And by the way, we got beat because we thought we were something special.
Because you beat Auburn.
Yeah.
And you go play Faulkner, somebody more your own size, and then get beat. Now, there's a story that Tommy Bryan has told, I believe, that Todd Helton has played at Cumberland.
Yeah.
Did he jack one over at Mr. Lancaster's house over there? Where there's
a couple of houses up from there. So, well,
Todd Helton was he quarterback at UT?
He was a quarterback at one time. He was a starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Then they replaced him with Peyton Manning.
Yeah. And then he went up on the major. He played Major League, right?
Yeah,
he played for the Rockies.
He's a potential Hall of Famer, man. He's that good. But the year before that, Tennessee played us, and Todd pitched.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we beat them.
Oh wow!
And the next year they came back, and Todd hit a home run. They missed like 16-6, and he hit one on that top of that house over in right center field, a monster shot. He was a gifted player, but we did beat him as a pitcher. He was very good at pitching too.
Yeah, so those are always, I love those little stories like that. One more little story, and then we'll start trying to wrap it up. This story that Tommy Lasorda came to Cumberland, and he was, how did you become friends with Tommy Lasorda?
Tommy Lasorda, Chris Smith was a hot prospect that year. He had transferred from Florida State, a left-handed pitcher, right fielder, and eventually got drafted in the first round, the 7th pick overall, which did a lot for our program. Well, I was in my office one day making up the lineup, and one of our players came in and said, Tommy Lasorda's out there. Talking to one of the players. I said, yeah, right. There's no way Tommy Lasorda's in our field. Well, I saw that he was serious, so I rushed out there, and Tommy was there talking to one of our players. Well, he was there to see Chris Smith pitch.
Yeah.
And, of course, we had a great day. We won 22-2 against a good team. Chris did well. But Tommy, he was there in batting practice with us, watching the batting practice. And he said, Coach, where'd you get those balls? I said, that's our own BP balls. He said, I'll send you some. I said, well, I thought, well, he won't do that. You know? And so he stayed around the whole game. I mean, that time in batting practice, went to our dugout for a few minutes, and was walking in our dugout, and our players were just starry-eyed, didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Then he walks into the stands, and he'd greet everybody, and everybody getting pictures of him and autographs of him. And then after the game, he came in to our clubhouse, and he spoke for 45 minutes to our players.
Wow.
And our players were captivated by him.
Yeah.
And he took my number, I took his, he signed autographs, and about a month later or whatever it was, he calls me up. And he said, this Coach, this Tommy Lasorda. And I didn't know what to think. He said, did you get those baseballs? I said, no, but I'm sure they're coming. Well, a few days after, he had sent us 3 big boxes of baseballs to use from Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
And then, he recognized me later on at an event in Florida. So Tommy Lasorda is a great friend of ours. I haven't talked to him in years, but great ambassador for the game.
Yeah, right.
That happened.
And he was also, Tommy was on those Weight Watchers commercials.
Yeah.
But his personality was a little bit bigger than the game.
Yeah.
He always seemed like a likable person when you interviewed with him. He got this Italian guy who cuts up and real funny and all that kind of stuff, real jovial.
Well, he was a very genuine guy, and he had such a charismatic personality. Like you say, his personality was bigger than the game sometimes.
Yeah. Chris played in the 90s? Did he play in the 90s?
Chris played 2001 for us.
Okay. 2001. Okay. Anyways, well, let's start wrapping this up. Let me ask you a question. If you were to give a piece of advice to, if you're sitting here today, 2020, Woody Hunt is giving advice to Woody Hunt back in 1963 or whenever it was, what is something that you would tell that younger version of yourself? I guess another way of saying that is, what would you tell to some young people about that you've learned that you are?
Well, I think I would tell myself and young people, it's going to be hard. Everything is going to be hard. Success is not easy.
Yeah.
I think today's world, we want instant success. You have to be patient, and you have to keep your feet grounded. I was able to stay in one spot for all these years, and I think that's one of the reasons we've been successful. And you have to know what you want to do as early as you can in life, then work toward that. You can't, there's a lot of kids that drift from here to different things, but you really got to know what you want to do. And the sooner you can figure that out, give you the opportunity to work toward that. And with God's help, and there's a lot of things can happen. Success is so different. In a lot of different ways, because success for you is different than success for me. But you're a successful person, and in whatever field that you're in, whatever job you have, you can be successful. And one of the ways you should be successful is how you treat people and how you go about your job.
Yeah.
And I think that's the basis for what we have to do to obtain success. And I think athletics nowadays has gotten a little bit over the top. I think a lot of athletes now feel like they're maybe entitled. They feel like everything's owed to them.
Yeah.
And it's not the case.
Yeah.
So when I was brought up the hard way, but I think nowadays people want the easy way. And I really think 2020 has been a learning experience for everybody. This has been a very difficult year.
And I missed this. I was going to wrap it up there, but I think I would be remiss not to go back. Your house was destroyed during the tornado. So I'm sorry, but I think people want to hear about that. So March 3rd, the night of March 3rd, your roof was removed. Talk about that for just a minute.
Well, I went to bed that night knowing that there could be storms. I didn't think about it a whole lot, like we all did.
Right.
And so I went to bed, was asleep, and then my alarm went off on the phone. And my sons were calling me and telling me that they were calling me frankly, telling me to get to cover. And so I got up, went to the TV, and turned it on. And the lady, she said, "If you live in this neighborhood, you better get to cover." So I got my wife, and we reluctantly or slowly went to the closet, innermost closet, and we bent down, sat on the floor. Not scared, it was just crazy how it happened.
Yeah.
And we sat there for about a minute, and here he comes.
Oh,
we
wow.
could hear it above our head, and it just took the whole roof off. And we're lucky that we were here, because if that tornado had been a little bit lower, it would sucked us out of the house. So the insurance, but we had to tear the house down and start over.
Okay.
So
Isn't I lived in went back home to Alabama for a couple of years, and we were down there, and the tornadoes hit in 2011.
Oh yeah, tough, man.
And it was amazing. Same thing. We were watching the TV, and this guy said, "Hey, it's coming through our little community. It's called Flat Rock. It is coming through in 5 minutes." And by George, this is during the day, and you could see. We saw a tornado. It didn't come by. We saw it go by. We saw that tornado. It's amazing to me they could tell you with such accuracy. Here,
It's unbelievable. I will now listen to the warnings better.
Say any prayers during that funeral? Did it
No.
Did it happen too quick?
We kind of went and sit down, and it happened.
Yeah.
And then we went outside, and we knew that we had damage. We couldn't tell; it was dark.
Yeah.
And then it started raining a whole lot. We tried to get to a motel. We couldn't even get because all the roads were closed.
Yeah.
So we went back and sat in our car in the driveway. And then we finally went into part of our house that was okay, just a room, a man cave, basically. Then the fire department came and said we had to leave because the house was dangerous.
Yeah. Wow. I'm glad. I'm glad you survived to see another, and then to see another baseball season. But then y'all didn't have a season, did you?
Well, everything happened in a week.
Yeah.
We had the tornado. Our baseball season was canceled. Just COVID came out.
Yeah.
And March was a tough month.
2020's been a tough year.
It has been.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Fist bump. Thank you I'm going to sing us out, unless you want to sing.
No, I'm not singing.
You're not going to sing? Singing is not one of your many talents.
I could beat Jeff over, but I can.
Good morning, Lebanon. Good morning, Lebanon. The sun is up, it's time to get stuff done. The coffee's hot, come on and get you some. Good morning, Lebanon.
Here's a singer right here.
That is a singer.